Hello, I'm Jim, and this is my wonderful wife, Carla.
Hello. So great to spend time with you together today. We have a special guest that we are so excited to have on here on the journey of life, love, and lessons. And I want to read you a little bit about her, and then we'll get to know her a little bit more throughout this process. So I'm going to use my glasses for this one. Pamela Peak, an Emmy nominated producer, director, and filmmaker, inspirational speaker. She is an award-winning screenwriter and producer-director whose uplifting work has been inspiring audiences on TV, film, and stages for decades. The stories in her films profoundly touch the human heart and have graced the screens of film festivals around the world. From the Gandhi Film Festival in Mumbai, India, to the Garden State Film Festival in Bruce Springsteen's hometown of Ashbury Park, New Jersey. From the prestige Palm Beach, oh my gosh, Palm Beach Film Festival to the Maine's Chinese Theater in the heart of Hollywood and countless others. Millions have been uplifted by her work, including the documentary films that appear on PBS. As an inspirational speaker and coach, Pamela has enjoyed working with large corporations such as Takeda Pharmaceuticals and Century 21. She works one-on-one with top executives, doctors, and lawyers, helping them become truly effective speakers themselves. As a teacher and dynamic acting coach, Pamela is known for drawing out the very best from the artists she works with, while she helps actors work from their heart and obtain that job. So we want to welcome you, Pam, to
Yes.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
We know that you have wrote a lot of inspirational films. As a coach, as an artist yourself, how do you coach artists, and why do you think it's important for you to coach the artists as well?
Well, artists are the most sensitive souls that there are in the world. And when you really think about it, we're a mirror to society, right? Both good and bad. Whether you see a scary film, a bad film, or something good, we're putting that mirror up there. So we have to be very sensitive. But in that we are sensitive and very creative, we also can receive a lot of negativity and take it to heart a lot because artists are so sensitive. And I love coaching artists because so many of my students, I've been an acting coach for years, both young and old. I've taught from 4 years old all the way up to 90. Wow. But so many of my students have experienced negativity, suppression, suppressive personalities coming down on them. And it's very prevalent in show business and even in the small community theater. We're kind of like magnets to suppression. It's sad to say the world is like that, right. But I like to be a shining light to help artists remember who they are. Right. And get them out there creating again.
Right, yeah. And artists have a big influence on things. They're influencing others by their opinions, by how they dress, by what they wear. All this stuff is kind of influential. So their character is very important as well. So I think you have a big part in that as well to do that.
That is so true.
Yeah. And how do you help the artists find their purpose? Because I know each person is different. They may have a different personality, but how do you do that? How can you help them find their unique purpose?
Well, whether I'm coaching writers, which I've been doing more and more of in my coaching practice, whether I'm coaching writers, coaching actors who are working with singers, whatever, the principles that I teach are very foundational. They're very foundational. For example, this one piece of information. What could stop an artist? One thing, invalidation. And so I teach them to spot that. And when we start spotting those things, I ask them, what's the biggest wins you ever had doing your art? And around that, they realize they had huge wins. They had huge purposes to help mankind. because really so many of my artists, even if they say I want to uplift mankind and I want to just make them laugh, that's a wonderful positive purpose.
Right.
But basically, I help them find their purpose by going back to when they were really little, before the invalidation came, and basically rehabilitating it by saying, okay, when you had that big win, what did you want to do? What was that thing in your heart that you wanted to do when you were little, when you
Right.
were an artist? What was it? And I hear it and I find it every time. Sometimes it's a bit painful for artists that have been trampled to recall, but
Mm-hmm.
you find it. And once you find it, it ignites
Yeah.
again because it's strong.
Yes, yes. And I believe that, God put giftings and talents into each one of us before we were born. So, like you're saying, I believe, as a little child, you're so innocent. You just say and think, you're so free and excited about life. And then people that you look up to or people that's part of your life trample on those goals and dreams, or like, okay, settle down, you're okay, don't think that big, that's not going to happen, or you're not talented enough.
That's exactly it. I can't tell you how many people were told, you can't get an art degree. You can't do that because you have to get a real job. Yet, in truth, there are some great jobs for artists.
Mm.
Whether they're mural drawers and they get hired by restaurants or architects, or they become teachers. I know of a woman now who's 77. She doesn't look it, but she works 5 days a week in a big charter school in Santa Ana in Orange County, where I live, and she runs shows, all these things, and she gets paid a handsome sum to be a charter school teacher doing these big shows. She's also an English teacher, which kind of goes hand in hand, but she does musicals. There are careers in the arts, and if you feel that you're a creative person, don't let anybody dissuade you. Do research on how can you still make money, but also be happy doing something artistic. Why not?
Why not, right? It takes, I always say, if everybody was the same, be a boring place to live, right? That's why we're all so unique and different. So
Yes.
in your life, did you experience that, and how did you find, how to do what you wanted to do? How did that come about for your own self?
Well, I sort of always knew. I'm like third generation showgirl.
Oh,
My grandmother, who I look a lot alike. If I showed you a picture, you go, "Oh my God!" She had heart disease, and way back in the day, before, it must have been like 50 years before the first heart transplant.
mm.
And she overheard that she was supposed to die when she was 18, and she was 16 when she heard her father say that in his barber shop. And she moped around and she basically said, wait a minute, I'm going to live until I die. Do you know she lived till 55 on sheer will because her heart shouldn't have been carrying her around? She had valve problems. She would have needed a transplant. And it was her that at the age of 2 years old, she'd give me lines, she'd play the piano, and almost like the beautiful telepathy, tell me what show business was about. So I always, to answer your question, I always sort of knew that show business was the magic for me. But I think you heard me talk about when I was in 8th grade. I moved from a Detroit public school where I felt very welcome, very loved, this wonderful group of kids and teachers, out to the suburbs of Detroit. And there was a mean clique of girls there. And I cannot tell you, my life went from like, wow, to I felt like I was Cinderella. I used to cry every day. And I didn't know, I used to pray a lot, and I didn't know how to overcome it. So they were giving a Christmas talent show, and I thought, I can sing. I'm going to go audition. And I thought, I'm going to sing a really beautiful song. Barbara Streisand's People. You guys know that song,
Yes.
People who need people are the luckiest people in the world.
Mhm.
And I'm going to put that out there to all this hate that was coming at me as the new girl. I mean, they used to put gum wrappers in my hair, tell me I was ugly, tell me I didn't belong there. And I auditioned and I got in to that talent show. I remember it was right before Christmas. It was a big assembly. And I looked out in the gymnasium. Our stage was in the gymnasium, like most are.
Mhm.
And I saw floor to ceiling people. And I looked over to my left and I saw that clique of mean girls. And one was chewing her gum, like, yeah, you think you're going to get up there? And I mean, my knees were knocking, you know. And then I looked at my mom. What's that? What's that?
Some symbols.
Exactly. And I looked over at my mom and she had this, like, go for it. You know, it was like Rocky Balboa, go for the fight, right? So I remember I got up there and my voice sounded way older. I was like 13, 12, 13. And my voice sounded like 30. And you know, when you get the echo in the gym, and I sang that loving song. And when I was done, the whole thing audience got quiet. And I just stood there. And then one person started clapping, and then another, and another. And I didn't know what to do. And I went to try to go back to my seat. And I remember teacher going like, get up there, get back up to the microphone. I got up to the microphone and I looked at those mean girls. And as I did, the whole auditorium rose to their feet.
That's
And I
amazing.
went,
Yeah.
oh my God. And I just stood there like overwhelmed. And the mean girls stood up. And I looked at my mom's face and she was like,
Right?
I can't believe this, right? And I knew then what my purpose was. My purpose with my art was to bring love to the masses. That's what God wanted me to do. No matter where the hatred is, where there is hatred, let me sow love. I love Saint Francis of Assisi and his beautiful prayer. And it was along that line that my purpose was. So yes, long answer, but yes, Carla, that's how I found my purpose. A test, a true test God gave me.
Yeah. And you do a great job at that. I mean, just, you know, your expression, it shows that you're happy. It shows that you have joy, that you shows that you are in your purpose, you know, and not a lot of people can say that, you know, and that's what you do. You help people to understand where they're at in life and how they can fulfill their God-given purpose, you know, to not only fulfill themselves, but it impacts the lives of others, you know. And I think that's one thing that we do in life, you know, we're more happy when we think of somebody else and we can
Yes.
serving other people, you know, and we get joy and fulfillment from it.
Oh
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we do get joy from giving to others. I mean, it's hard for me sometimes to do something for myself, but I can turn around and do it for someone else. And just like with your story there, you know, just like the energy that you give off, and then, you know, that, you know, enjoyment, you know, and it becomes attractive. And so others are like, wow, I could do that,
Mhm.
you know, or something
Gives
else
them
on their
hope.
own. Yeah, it gives them hope and everything. So, you know, and you have a joyful smile, and just to, you know, when you're happy, you know, that radiates and others can see it around you.
Mhm.
And so, you know, it sounds like in a story, those people there felt that and they responded to it, you know, and and I would have been going like, okay, what do I do?
Believe me, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I remember when I went home, Jim, I couldn't stop smiling. And I think Carla has heard me say this before. Do you know no one bothered me again for the next 6 years? Because if I was in eighth, well, that's 5 years, eighth grade all the way up to 12, nobody ever, you know, that middle school poured into our high school. Nobody ever bothered me again.
Yeah.
And then I knew, okay, this is what I need to do. And I do have to say this, that when an artist finds her purpose, when they have a really big success or win like that was, then you can use it as a compass. So when you get knocked down, an artist will invariably get the critic that comes in, or the person that wanted to become the artist, they failed, so why should you do it? And they
Right.
try to pull you back.
Yes.
That's something I make my artists that I coach aware of. That when you start rising and returning to your art, there's going to be some naysayers, old friends show up and
Mhm.
try to distract you, throw you off, and pull you back
Yeah,
off of the purpose that God wants you to be on.
right. And once you found out, because you're standing there on stage, people standing up, giving you a standing ovation, you knew that that was your purpose. You knew that's what you wanted to be. So who was the biggest influence on developing that for yourself? Because you're 13 years old. And so who was a big influence in your life to be able to develop that, to know, like, yes, I see this in her as well. So let's help her nourish that.
That was my mom, Vivian Peak, and she lived till 95 and just died. Well, it'll be 2 years this August. But I am so blessed that I feel like helping artists is simply me paying it forward. My mom wouldn't let me work when I went to New York to study at the top acting schools and dance schools. She sold real estate to put my sister and I through those schools. And I feel so good that at this age, I'm still teaching what I learned when I was 18, 19, and 20, right out of high school. When I moved to New York, that was amazingly frightening too. But my
Right.
mom was always there for me as a financial support. I mean, as I got older, yes, I paid my own way. But, during those college years, she was there. But more than that, she was a voice of truth. She was a voice of God's truth.
Right.
God had put in her a wisdom that I haven't met anybody else. Excuse me, I'm going to cry.
Right.
Anybody else that had that wisdom, like Vivian Peak did. And she would always go like this, and she'd say, God has always been good to us. Trust what's going to happen, Pammy. And I hear her voice coming out of me, and I hear her laughter when I'm teaching children or I'm directing a play. I hear her coming out of me, and it was such a gift.
Yeah. And that's like a legacy that she has left in you. So now you're still carrying on her legacy through yourself as well.
Yeah.
You
And,
make
and telling others, make this your legacy too. All my students know about Vivian. I say now, in fact, some of them when I'm coaching, they go, what do you think Vivi would say? Well, I'll tell you exactly what she'd say. I think someday I'm going to
Yeah.
write a book and it's like, what would Vivi say?
Right. Yeah. Well, it sounds like she's been a great influence. And, I think if people had a Vivian in their life, their life would turn out so much better. I mean, because there's just so many naysayers, so many people who's ready to just throw you under the bus, stab you in the back, just to keep you down. And so, I mean, Vivians are very important, in life, and we need more people like that.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
go ahead, Jim. I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say that's good that you have that we'll say that voice
Mhm.
in you. Then when everybody else around you, like you're saying in the
Right.
industry, that there's gonna be the ones the naysayers and try to knock you down or criticize, and you may feel like you're all alone. But having that voice inside you gives you that encouragement and that
Comfort. Mhm.
comfort
Yeah.
and confidence
Right.
to continue
Yes.
on.
Yes, and I've had some, like a lot of people, I've had some real valleys in my life. I remember a point where my husband and I had to file a lawsuit because somebody violated his beautiful software copyrights, and he had systems in all these beautiful buildings in downtown LA, Orange County, and we had to. Our back was up against the wall. And right in the middle of that, my sister-in-law, my best friend, died of breast cancer, who lived with us. And I had to fight for her kids. And I remember a very dark night where I didn't think I could make it. And I just prayed to God that I could. And I remember Vivian grabbing my wrist and I was crying. And she goes, you have to be strong for those kids. You can do it. And you're right, Jim. I hear her voice. You can do it. And I hope the people that I coach end up hearing my voice and Vivi coming through me saying, you can do it. You
Right.
can do it. No matter what befalls you, you can keep going. Be open. Let God speak to you. That's another thing, is let God speak to us and be open to
Right.
what we're perceiving.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's very vital, for that one. And like you're saying, people, you're like what would Vivian say? Well, there's going to be people that says, what would Pamela say? And so that's going to be a legacy as well that you're instilling to the artists that you're doing, you know, and all the work, the character, because, you know, making films and all that stuff is maybe not the best environment. Sometimes you get corrupted, you know, and then a lot of people gets corrupted by going there, and then their life pays the toll of that. And so you
Yes.
have to be very careful, and you are a testament to that, to where you can overcome, you know, the negativity that comes your way.
Yes, and I have to say that's one of my decisions to become an independent filmmaker.
Mhm.
You're doing it all. It's like a lot of work, writer, producer, director. Yes, I have my post-production crew that I always depend on. But I remember once with one of my films that was on PBS, I had 50 people here in California that were the voices of this story. It was a World War, I mentioned this to you, a World War I story of my grandpa's in 1918. And I had 50 reenactors in Michigan, and we shot in a blizzard. And it's like so much going on, so many personalities. And you have sponsors that have put money in and deadlines and just coordinating. I remember months I wake up like this. I had 90 days to finish editing this film because I had promised them all, okay, it's going on PBS. And I got it on PBS. But I remember waking up in the morning going, get back to the editing right now, you know, every day for like all these days. And I hit the deadlines. So you're doing it all. But you do it all because you can make decisions. And you can make decisions that are ethical to you. You're not compromising like sometimes what Hollywood calls you to do. I only make films that say ethically what I want to say.
Right.
And that's the joy of it. When you're done, you feel your conscience and your heart is clean.
Right.
Well, that's good. Yes. And that's awesome when you have that power and ability, you know, to share, you know, what's in your heart, because when someone shares in their heart, that has such impact, just like you're, you know, in middle school there,
Yeah.
the impact you had, and you've seen the impact. That was your first introduction to the impact that you can have from what's in your heart. And so just like you're describing that, you're just continuing that legacy and sharing that with others. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for duplicating that.
Yeah. Is there any films or anything that you like to highlight? Anything that stands out that's special to your heart?
Oh God, I think the most special to my heart was my signature film, Colorblind. And that it was on PBS a while back, and then I wrote a screenplay which won 7 awards. And I Colorblind was a labor of love, and the miracles that God put in my life as I was making that film used to astound me and my 3rd grade boyfriend. He was my co-producer, right, Timmy. And we used to go, because we knew we were supposed to make it. It was about this group of white kids who grew up in the civil rights era and had all these white old lady teachers like we did back in those days in Detroit. And in walks this handsome young Black man. And he changed our lives. He got us to see what it was like to be a Black man in the 1950s and be discriminated against. And I remember sitting there at 10 years old. He'd let us have these discussions. He'd go, Thursdays and Fridays, he'd go, put away your books. And we'd go, oh, good, we're getting to talk to Mr. Bell, you know. So we put away our books, and he'd lead the discussion, and everybody was welcome to speak. And more, we'd have more and more Black kids that were moving into our neighborhood. And we get to hear what they had to say. We would say what some of our parents said, which wasn't so kind. You know, there was a lot of racism in those days. And then Mr. Bell would tell us what it was like. And when I heard that Mr. Bell was refused lemonade when he was in the 1950s, he was in the U.S. marching band, and he got up to the counter and he went to get some lemonade, and they were all so thirsty. And the guy selling the lemonade says, we don't serve your type here. I went, and I remember screaming in my head at 10 years old, not my Mr. Bell, right? just hit me so hard. And you know, I was so proud. All the soldiers around Alvin Bell said, if you won't serve Alvin, we don't want your lemonade. And they walked away.
Right.
And of course, that story's in the film. But the film is us reuniting when we were 45. And everybody wanted to be there. And so did Diane Sawyer and her camera crew from ABC News. They loved our story. In fact, I had Dateline NBC and Diane Sawyer fighting over the story, right?
Amazing.
And I chose ABC News because her producer got the heart of the story. So it came out on Martin Luther King's birthday. They made a story of it. And then I said, I've got to take all this beautiful footage. It was so loving and make a beautiful documentary. And I did. And that was the first documentary I made. I had made tons of industrial films where you're highlighting a product and other types of films. But since then, it won so many awards. I just did a number of documentaries. I got one going right now called God, Guts, and Grit, about the pioneer women of the Southwest U.S. and how much grit they had and what God meant to them, and how this one particular lady, how she found God in nature. And I'm loving doing it. It's going to be it's a smaller film, but it's beautiful. Probably play on PBS in the Western United States. It's a beautiful statement about how God is in nature, and we find our souls through that. Mm-hmm. And she had to be strong. They had to be strong. Those things.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I love how every piece of your film and your make comes out from your heart. I mean, you're real, you're authentic, but it is a piece of how you believe, which is, could be just like you're saying about the teacher, those things is crazy to imagine that somebody could be treated that way, so I mean, it influenced you at 10 years old and you remembered that. And so you was able to bring that to people's attention and to bring awareness that there's already awareness to that stuff, but also it helped to see it in a different light from a 10-year-old and from a child's point of view as well to where you are as an adult.
And what was so amazing is we're the only class that we had Mr. Bell for history, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And we were the only class he ever took a picture of. He took one of the girls and one of the boys. Do you know 90% of us kept those pictures when we got together? And we all showed up. And when we showed up, that reunion was so joyfully tearful. When we showed up, we found that all of us, one way or another, had stood up for civil rights and loving others despite the color of their skin. We had all taken a stance like Mr. Bell would have wanted us to do. It was quite a reunion.
And was he part of the film?
A big part.
Yeah.
He got up and spoke, and he is so wonderful. He was 69 at this point. He's older now, and he's still hanging in there. His wife swears that he had some health issues, and she said, Alvin is alive today, because when that aired from coast to coast on PBS, students came out of the woodwork thanking Mr. Bell. He then went on to become a principal. He was loved, and he deserved those accolades for helping so many children get on the right road. And I was so happy to have spearheaded that because he deserved it.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like an amazing man.
Yeah, he is. In fact, I keep saying I'm going to call him, and I better call him tonight.
You call him. Tell him Jim and Carly Keeler said hello. We don't know his face.
I will.
But he still influenced their life by his kind heart.
I will tell him that. I'm going to.
Yeah, with your inspiration, your stuff is inspiring us, just the enthusiasm, for what you have in your heart, for like things that we have or anyone else that has desires of their heart to go after it, no matter what else says, and how you grow as an individual and the impact you can have to those around you, just like you're saying, your teacher there, the impact it had to you and those in the class. And, you look back at it, maybe then you mean like, wow, that's okay, this is cool. But then you look at it later on,
right?
Like you're saying, your reunion, then you see what impact that one person had on everyone in your class there. So, I mean, each one of us has that impact on those around us.
Right.
And you have that ability to and that talent to show that in films and documentaries and things to others to give them bigger, masses. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. And I figure, why not? Why, we have a model in my acting classes, and I teach the technique of Sanford Meisner. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was one of the greatest acting teachers in American history. And it's act from your heart. Don't let your head get in the way. And I tell my little students, I go, you use your head at school. When you come to acting class, what do you use? Our hearts. It's kind of cool to be teaching something that says, go from the heart.
Yeah.
What do you feel? Go from your heart. And I think if we could all live our lives more like that.
Right.
I mean, where does God speak through us, to us? Through our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Jesus' heart to ours.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that and getting people more in touch with the truth of themselves, the truth of their own heart, they will find God. They will find God.
Yeah, right. And I think he uses us as a tool, all of us, as that tool to lead them and to know a reflection of him, to be that positive influence and to know that you can achieve good things in your life. You can, be successful and still, love your life. You don't have to go down that wrong path to have people to care about you and to do the things that they were created to do, just like each one of us. So it is great to be, to be an influence on people's life, to be able to know that, God is there with us at all things, and to be able to give us that integrity, the character, and the decision making, in everything that we do.
Amen. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, just gonna say, everything you're saying there just being, like you're saying, inspiring to us, and
Right.
and and I repeat myself in a way, but that the impact that you have, and through the life that you've lived and gone through, and you've learned a lot of things, and you're able to pass that on to others and
Right.
teach those lessons. As a
Right.
teacher, you're being an actor, teacher, and you're teaching others. You're giving them lessons and teaching how to work through things in life and how to handle things and look at things.
Right.
And so that is such a big honor. And some people sometimes take it for granted that they don't have that ability.
Right.
But like you're saying, you're teaching the small little things, and then, like, look, it's your heart, not your mind, it's your heart.
Yeah.
And they learn that and they remember that, and go all through their lives. And so
Yeah.
and that's so impacting. And you're able to touch people that,
Right.
like you're saying, it 4 years old all the way up to 70s.
Yeah, 90. I had a friend. Listen to this. I love this woman. Her name was Jeanette Chait. And I met her when she was 87 years old in an acting class.
Wow.
And she was this darling little Jewish grandma from New York. We adopted her because she was Jewish. We'd ever come over for, my mom would cook, and we'd ever come over for Christmas and Easter, right? But at 90 years old, she was full of sunshine. She had her own TV show in Leisure World, which is a huge senior community out here in Orange County. And she touched people's lives wherever she went. And she did more commercials than anybody I ever met. She even got Jason Alexander's mother in a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, and she's making money hand over fist. I'm going to my students, don't get discouraged. She's at 90 years old. She made all this money, so we can too.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives you hope, right?
It does.
It's never too late.
Never too late. Never. Yeah.
And so, as we wrap this up, do you have any words of wisdom, encouragement, hope that you would like to share with everyone?
I just want to say, if you have a dream in your heart, don't let it die. Don't let it die. You guys have probably heard that story about, they asked people at the end of their lives. This was a study that was done in an old folks home. What do you regret most? And the answer came out over and over again. It's the things I didn't do. that I wish I had done.
Right.
That is very profound. If you have a dream, I don't care if it's inventing, I don't care what it is, building a company, building up furniture, I don't care, whatever it is, or to be an artistic dream, it's never too late. We will not be happy. And if that dream's in your heart, it was put there for a reason.
Mhm.
God put it there for a reason. Don't go out without shining that one. There's my word of wisdom.
Great words of wisdom. Always say to people, at the end of your life, are you going to say, I wish I did, or I'm glad I did? And so those are words, if you think about that when you're reflecting back on your life, what are those opportunities you missed? You know, and that's exactly true. People think of it that way. People live life a lot differently. I do believe that people would live it differently if they just reflect back, you know, kind of go up in time and then reflect back. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to be the one who says life of regrets. And so I think that's key right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that is the big key. Like that, you know, we've said that to people and they're like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm-
People get afraid.
And
People
it's
get afraid, and it's shadows we're afraid of. It's things from the past or suppression in the past. Those are shadows. We have to have the courage. It takes courage to live your dream.
It does.
And we have to have the courage and the integrity. There's a definition of integrity that I teach my students. It's knowing what you know and having the courage to state it. Some people are afraid to even say what that dream is because, boom, they might get hit.
Mm-hmm.
Get in a safe space, get away from those negative influences and know what you know, state it and act on it.
Yes, absolutely. And so thankful to have you here today, and that all those principles and all the things that you're teaching your artists and your friends and family, everybody that you're around, they are blessed, you know, because you are full of integrity and just a joyful spirit. So it's a very blessing for us to be a part of your life and to get to know you more and to have this time together to share with all of our viewers. And it's just amazing to have you with us. We appreciate it. We're
Yes.
honored to have you here.
Thank you. I am honored to be here. I love your show. I love what the two of you are doing, and I just support it from my heart.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.